Hello and welcome to the Innovation Inc. presentation. This is a bit of a masterclass, but you could also call it a survival kit for business innovation, trying to do amazing new products and services, revolutionary things, and bringing them into the world. Hello, my name is Mike Parsons. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Qualitance, and I want to share with you what I've learned from studying the very best innovation companies in the world, the likes of Amazon, Google, Tesla, you name it. Let's learn from the best and let's see how they deal with some of the challenges, some of the bumps that come along the way. Now, history is littered with innovation fails. In the top left there, you can see the R.J. Reynolds smokeless cigarette, a true wonder. The only problem was that the byproduct of the smokeless cigarette was the fact that it left a taste of charcoal in your mouth, which displeased customers terribly. And of course, we had the Nook taking on the Kindle. We had Microsoft Zune trying to challenge the iPod, and both failed dramatically. And who could forget the classic, the Heinz multicolored ketchup? Truly a great fail. It was inspired by the beautiful green tones of Shrek, the cartoon character. And after initial pop, the launch fizzled out and is no longer with us. But you know, tech titans like Facebook and Google, they've also had their innovation challenges, and there's a lot for us to learn in that. Who can forget Google's famous Google Glass? It was just such a contrast to social norms, very off-putting for people to talk with people with the glasses on. That quickly failed. We have Facebook's attempt at a mobile operating system. One of the titans of the last century, Sony, tried to introduce Betamax, which is no longer with us. And of recent times, we also had one of the innovation superstars, Netflix, tried to spin out their DVD business under the name Qwikster. It was met with an uproar from customers and was quickly cancelled and returned back to the model of Netflix as they knew it. So the truth here is that both new and old companies, both seasoned, stellar performers in the innovation space can fail. In fact, this is Clay Christensen, who's without doubt one of the greatest innovation gurus. He says 95% of all innovation fails. And we're talking about real attempts to make something truly remarkable, something that's like 10 times better than anything else that exists right now. 95% of innovation fails. So what we know is that innovation is so hard. It's super hard. It's almost mission impossible. But there is hope. And I think that the hope lays in studying the best of the tech titans of today, looking at them, decoding what they do, and breaking it down into practices that we can do too. First of all, the e-commerce juggernaut, the hosting juggernaut, the home artificial intelligence smart speaker juggernaut, Amazon. There's so much to learn from them. And what about Apple over there at Cupertino, down from Seattle where Amazon is based? Apple have great customer experiences, great products. There's a ton to learn from the guys in Cupertino. And just across the road in Mountain View, there's of course Google. So much that we can learn from these three companies and many others. These lessons I want to give to you today. I actually want to show you the tips, the tricks, the cheats, if you will, on what they do and how you can actually employ them as well. So we're going to talk about some frameworks. I'll give you a whole spectrum in which you can look at innovation. I'll give you some principles to design great products. And we'll really get into some of the methodology and challenges that you face and that you need to use when you're trying to create a product that's 10 times better than anything today. So let's look at some definitions first, because everyone's talking about innovation, but I think very few people really know what it is. I like it, particularly when we talk about product innovation, I really like to think about this sort of design thinking inspired statement and question. How do we create viable, profitable products that users love. To me, this is like the essence of innovation, because in it, there's three ideas. First of all, the products we create have to be viable. And that really means like we can actually make it at scale today, be it digital or analog, viability of your product, get out of the lab and make sure you can do it at scale. And the other thing around product innovation is making it profitable. And particularly here, what we're talking about is pricing power. There's no use in building a product that costs you $10,000 per product to make and only selling it for $5,000. That's crazy. You've got to have a product that is both viable and profitable. And the essence, the granddaddy of them all, is customers and users need to love it, not like. They need to love it. This is essential if you want your product to be a total innovation hit. Now, people bandy this word of innovation around. It's overused and little understood. What we really mean by innovation is doing something, introducing something to the world, a product or a service that is 10 times better than anything else today. And that usually starts with tackling a huge problem. Not like a small, niche, nice problem, but tackling a massive problem. And usually, the approach to that problem is to get 10x is to employ a radical solution, to come at it a different way and blow the roof off in an untraditional, unconventional way. And in terms of the world we live in today, 10x has a third component. It has the huge problem, it has the radical solution, and it often involves the use of breakthrough technology. You'll hear of things such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, IoT, these sort of high-performing exponential technologies. These are often breakthrough technologies that come and give you that 10x factor. The other thing you'll hear me talk about a lot today is product. And when I talk about product, I mean services, something physical or experience. So don't get tripped up and just think it's only something physical in your hand. It could be a service like home delivery. It could be a retail in-store experience, or it could be, in fact, something physical like the iPhone. So when I say product, that's what I mean. Okay, so why does trying to create innovative products matter? What can we look at in history and learn from to sort of frame the importance? Well, I think these three companies tell us everything. First of all, Blockbuster was the total owner of that Friday night ritual of going to the video store, walking down the aisle, and picking up some VHS cassettes. You know, this was a ritual that was conducted all around the planet for over a decade. But then suddenly, along came Netflix and streaming, and it totally disrupted Blockbuster. And the craziest twist in this story is early in the life of Netflix, Blockbuster had the chance to buy the entire company for a couple of $1 million and rejected the opportunity. With a similar twist is Kodak. They were the kings of those remember those little canisters of film that you used to take on vacation and you couldn't get light on them and you had to get them in your camera? Well, this was the business they thought they were in, the world of film. And along came digital technology and completely disrupted them. An even greater twist than Blockbuster was that Kodak was in fact the creator of digital technology, yet they didn't embrace it. Others did, yet it ended up disrupting them. And for those of you old enough to remember, there was a time in the world of mobile phones where Nokia was the man. Everybody had a Nokia. You could make phone calls, send text messages. Back in the day, in the 90s, you could even play Snake. That's right. That's what we're talking about. The latest cutting edge technology in mobile phones. But I make fun of this, but it really was a time before BlackBerry, before the iPhone, and they owned the market. But they lost direction, and along came the keyboard with BlackBerry and email integration with BlackBerry, and then came the iPhone with touch and app stores. And the truth be told is nobody owns a Nokia anymore. And all these companies demonstrate they innovated once, but not twice. So you can't rest on your laurels. Innovation matters now and in the future. You've done it once, you need to do it again. You have to be innovating all the time. And when you do, amazing things happen. Now, this is a fascinating chart because what it does is it compares Walmart to Amazon. So it's taking their market capitalizations over a 20-year period. And you'll see in 1997, Walmart was worth a staggering $69 billion. Amazon doesn't even actually appear on the chart in its lonely, minuscule $440 million. But just 20 years later, and the innovation formula, solving big problems, radical solution, and employing some breakthrough technology, boom, Amazon is crushing Walmart. There's a total turn of the tables in just 20 years. And the same 20-year cycle we see happening between Apple and Microsoft. Microsoft in the mid-90s was easily dominating Apple. And then 2007, the iPhone began. And everything started to change. We had iPad, iPod, you name it. It all transformed, real value creation. And you can see here that the net value, the net profits that was created by Apple's innovation outperformed Microsoft in a staggering way. So the lesson here is it doesn't matter whether you're the top of your game or a new challenger, everybody needs to be innovating, and the tables can be turned so quickly. Okay, so I think I've made a case for innovation. Let's start to get into it by decoding what it is and looking at the sort of landscape of innovation. And for me, the big picture of innovation is what I call the 4 Ps: people, profit, promotion, and product. Now, throughout this talk, I'm going to focus largely on product, but I want to make a big point here is that you cannot innovate in product if you don't have amazing things happening in promotion, people, and profit too. These things are interrelated. But let's break them apart for a second. If you want to look at innovation from a people point of view, a great example is the All Blacks. For many generations, for many dynasties, they have been the greatest sporting team on the planet. We are talking about a win rate of 85%. And what it comes down to is culture, leadership, and values. They've created so many great captains, so many great players, and they uphold the strongest of values. This is at the core of their innovation. Flip over to the world of profit, and like a classic profit innovation case study is Google. They have totally transformed the industrial age world of advertising with their AdWords business. And at the heart of this, they have disrupted the way people connect with customers and buy ads. And it's no surprise now that all the big advertising holding companies are suffering a huge amount of pain and disruption because their business model has been totally disintermediated by Google and Facebook. On the other side of the equation here is promotion, how you tell your story. And there's no greater story than Nike. They create this amazing advocacy and media performance through creating a brand that people adore. Everyone wants to wear Nike. When we talk about product, there's a great example, Dyson. Dyson are a company that James Dyson founded, and who thought that the business of moving air around could be sexy? Who thought vacuum cleaners could be sexy? Well, Dyson have made it true. They have created a series of amazing products that dry your hands, vacuum your house, and everything in between. And they are just a great case study in creating experiences and products and systems that are 10 times better than what was on offer before they entered the market. So there's like a whole talk I can give just about these 4 Ps. And I encourage you guys to check out my site, mikeparsons.net. There you can get lots more information and writing I've done on the 4 Ps. But there's 4 truths I want to share with you before we look at a couple of other tools and frameworks. The first thing here is, if there's a truth, if there's a mantra to people and innovation, that's that great products are built by great companies. Companies that have fantastic culture, have spirit, uphold the highest of standards amongst each other. these companies make great products. And I can tell you for sure that bad companies with bad culture, they never build great products. So if you want to start somewhere with innovation, you can just create a better culture, and that's a great underlying condition for innovation. Of course, profit, as I mentioned, if you look at the likes of Google and Facebook, this all starts with this idea that growth is a result of solving big customer problems. And that's for sure what Google did. They solved a massive problem and they have reaped massive rewards as a result. So go out and solve big problems, and in doing so, you'll uncover big financial opportunities. Look, no business can exist without great marketing. And the core of where we are today with marketing and with advertising, with branding, is you have to tell a story worth sharing. And the reason that this matters so much is that your customers and your employees need to tell a story. They need to want to tell a story. They need to be inspired and energized by the story that you have to tell. This story is often your mission and your vision for how you want to change the world. But you need to have this if you want to innovate. Yes, you need a good product, but take a good product with good marketing and you're on fire. But the irony is here that no good marketing will ever fix a bad product. So that brings us to product. And for me, if you want to build a great product, it starts with testing and learning with real customers. And you'll find all the inspiration there to do something great. Okay, so I know I'm dropping a lot of information on you. Let's now just check out a few tools that you can actually use, a few frameworks that help you frame innovation and get this big picture under control. This is the Lean Canvas. It's a fantastic tool that is sort of the modern day business plan or business case in one page. It's agile, easy to use, and in here you'd have your problem, your solution, you have your channels, your customer segments, and all the other goodies you can see here on the screen. What's key though is that there becomes this relationship between different quadrants inside of this framework. And just as an example here, the key metrics of your product or solution, you know, how it performs on a day-to-day basis for your customers, will directly relate to the cost structures and revenue streams that you have. And what I find time and time again is not only understanding the relationship between these different parts of the canvas, it requires a lot of work, but the other thing is you need to test and validate your assumptions in here. And if you do this, this is a fantastic tool to take a snapshot of innovation. Let's for a moment assume that you're in an existing organization that has existing products and services in the world. How can you think about innovation? And this is another tool that I constantly use with clients. I constantly discuss with startups and everything in between. This is a fantastic tool. It's called Horizon Planning, and it's broken into 3 areas. The first is Horizon 1, defending your core business. Number 2 is about expanding the core business. And 3 is about creating transformative growth. Now, what's interesting, like defending the core is like, that's more like launching variants of existing products, maybe moving into different channels, different markets, and so forth. Where expanding the core is like launching into adjacent areas, creating brand new products and stuff like this. Transformative growth is where you cannibalize yourself just with disruptive, completely different types of approaches to business. And this is really the radical side of innovation. Now, what's a really important point to make here is that I often see organizations requesting, oh, let's do Horizon 2, let's launch something really new. And what they end up doing is just launching a variant of their existing product. They end up defending their core business. Now, there's nothing wrong with defending your core business, but where the mistake here is thinking you're doing Horizon 2 when you're actually doing Horizon 1. And there's so many decisions and resource allocations that differ between the different horizons. It's really critical you understand which horizon you're moving into. Now let's move here into a tool that really frames culture, and I love this one. This one This framework is basically defining culture as being something which is the unspoken messages people receive about what's valued in the company. For example, we're talking about behaviors, systems, and symbols. So when we say behaviors, we mean like, how do we conduct a meeting? A symbol is how we allocate time and money, how we hire and fire. And systems are like the structures and, the way we plan and organize the organization. These things tell us the truth about what we value, and what we value is our culture. So this is always a very good checklist to come back to if you want to check in on your culture. This is an example of Kelly Johnson at Lockheed Martin. They created the first fighter jet in 180 days, and rather than working inside of Lockheed Martin, they created a separate autonomous group with a small group of people who were highly empowered. This was called, you probably know the name, Skunkworks. And it's a classic, right? But I tell you what, it may be more than 50 years old, but I love this idea of Skunkworks. And I have to call out my friend Iwan Jakob, who's also at Qualitance. He's a big advocate of Skunkworks models, and I agree. This is a great way to transform your culture and to create the right structure for innovation. As some of you know, I spent a long time in advertising, and I love building brands and marketing campaigns. The only point I want to make here about this fourth P, about promotion, is do not underestimate the power of brand and a story worth telling. This is Interbrand's analysis of the total worth of this intangible asset of brand for Nike, and it's well beyond $25 billion. And that means that when you put that Nike swoosh on a garment or on a pair of shoes, it sells itself, because they create stories that people want to share. People identify with the values, the mission that Nike are on, and this gives them an unfair advantage against all of their competitors. Okay, so we've got these 4 Ps in mind. Now, if you're working hard inside of those 4 P areas, the real question is where are you going to innovate? Okay, where do you start? And this is a great spectrum that I've developed to really simplify the areas in which you need to innovate. And I want you to study this really carefully. We're going to look at a couple of case studies, because I think in here there's a big secret to becoming a tech titan. Okay, number 1, you need to, starting on the left here, you need to innovate in your customer experience. So the classic thing you'll hear here is store of the future, customer service, etc., etc. These are like customer experience pieces of innovation. Now, good news, these things are fast, easy to do, get into market, and can create immediate returns. The challenge, obviously, is that these things become highly copyable. And you only need to look at a Microsoft store and an Apple store to see, like, yeah, store of the future might be great, but people will copy them. A lot harder is product innovation. Whilst it is still copyable, you need to also not only innovate in customer experience, but also in your products. You need to create the Uber for this or that. And you need to look at companies like Xbox and PlayStation, both innovating on their platforms. Or in fashion, look at Uniqlo. These guys are all creating great product. System-wide innovation is the third, the hardest, the biggest, but this one is the heavyweight champion of innovation. If you can do system-wide, network-wide innovation, you're creating things like network effects, exponential characteristics, and you should think in creating cryptocurrencies, collaborative economy, Hyperloop. These are all examples of system-wide innovation. And let's now take this spectrum and see what it looks like when we go to Seattle and look at what Amazon are doing, sorry. Now, check out this. You go to Amazon, and a great exercise here is like, just think of the range of innovation. Just think how much. You can go to Amazon and get great customer experience. They've got like one-click shopping, Prime membership, dash buttons. But they also have some pretty great products. They've got the Kindle. They've got the Amazon Echo. They've got the world's biggest online store. They have even like a film studio that actually wins tons of awards. But then on the system-wide network effects, They've got the biggest hosting company in the planet. They've got artificial intelligence. They've even got 40 jumbo jets to make delivery that much better. That is a full spectrum of innovation. And what's crazy, one company is doing it all. Cupertino, let's have a look at Apple. They have the best performing retail stores in the universe. They sell more things per square foot than anybody else. They have the world's most beautiful products. And they have a killer supply chain. They have their own computer languages and software languages. They have operating systems. This is a killer combination. But Google, exactly the same. Beautifully powerful search. All their Google apps, like think about how much you use Google Docs, that G Suite of apps, it's amazing. Google Maps, still #1 in maps. These are all great customer experiences. We move to product. They've got YouTube, the biggest video distributor on the planet. They've got their smart home speakers with Google Home. They've got Chrome browser. And then system-wide, they have the world's most popular smartphone operating system. They have an operating system for their Chromebooks, and they have an enormously big cloud platform as well. These guys are innovating across the spectrum. Now, because they're doing that, they display some unique characteristics. This is a little bit of a secret in the world of innovation. The first thing they do is they self-cannibalize. So if you compare Apple and Kodak, you'll really kind of understand what I'm talking about here. The first thing is, like, Tim Cook talks about they try to create this culture where they don't fear cannibalization. And we know it's true. They had the iPod. They had the iPod, and then they introduced the iPhone. They had the iPhone, and then they introduced the iPad. They're not scared to cannibalize their own markets because they're so brilliant that they would rather that they cannibalize themselves than somebody else. Now, what's really a stark comparison is if you look at Kodak, when they created digital photography, the engineer, the guy behind it all, when he went to management, they were like, yeah, that's cute, but don't tell anyone about it. We're not in the digital business. Yet their business was destroyed by digital photography, the thing that they created. So embrace cannibalization. That's the first thing they do. The other thing is they don't fail innovation. They sort of celebrate this learning process. And this is Jim Smith from FedEx. He's like, we never punish for innovation that's failed. We just learn from it and move on. The other thing they do is they have enormous momentum. These companies, like take Apple and Amazon, if you were to sit here and the exercise you do here is you say, let's try and compete with either of these companies. Let's take Apple. Let's try and get them in customer experience. Yeah, but they've got the most effective resale stores in the world. Okay, let's create our own smartphones. Well, they have the most beautiful smartphone in the world. Okay, let's get them on like a supply chain. They happen to have the best supply chain as well. The truth here, this is a castle, a moat, a gateway, a forest. I mean, Warren Buffett would be proud of these guys. This diagram tells you everything you need to know about why Apple and Amazon are tech titans, and no one can displace them because the breadth of their innovation is so large. Okay, so now you can have a go at this. So if you translate this thinking of the spectrum, you can ask yourself a couple of questions. One, like, how can you make the way customers purchase radically better? And a great example here is Uber helps you, to compare it to getting a taxi. You get a taxi and you never have to get out the cash or your card. Invisible transaction. Beautiful. Product. How can you create something that's 10 times better than anything else? Don't take 5 times better. Like, breathtaking at a minimum. Dream big. And lastly, if you could use your scale and your network effects, how could you create like a de facto standard in your industry? How could you become the way? This is a great way to think about system innovation. Okay, so now you're all jazzed. You want to go build this product. You're ready to go. You've got this big picture. You want to go out and make it happen. Well, here are some principles that will help you stay out of trouble. I mentioned this before. You've really got to go out and create viable, profitable products that people love, okay? And here's how you can avoid failing at these. Now, the first one is segue. Like, holy smoke. Great invention, not an innovation. People did not love this product. The truth be told here, they created this product in the complete absence of the customer. They hid it in a bunker, secured and hidden from the world, hidden from the press and their customers, and they created something that failed in 3 big areas. 1, no charge stations. 2, it couldn't go upstairs. Massive problems for customers. But 3, most importantly, when they launched the product and people tried the Segway, one of the strongest, most reoccurring comments from people who tried the product was they felt like they looked silly on the product. They looked stupid. And so they deviated from social norms, which is a critical thing to avoid when you launch a new product. So really ask yourself, does the customer really desire this? Will they miss it when it's gone? Do they really want to talk about this product? These are all ways you can know if you've created something that people love. Now, Apple Newton. Again, super neat idea, but this one was just not viable. They were competing with pen and paper. Super quick, easy to write. And their handwriting detection technology was so slow that it couldn't compete at all with a classic pen and paper. So the product really failed because it wasn't viable. And so you need to ask yourself, do you really have the materials and the tools we need to build this at scale? And do you really know how much time and money it's going to take even to get to a minimum viable product? And what you will often find that if you truly study these, you'll know if this is a viable product or whether it's a nice experiment in the lab. Here's a classic. Microsoft Encarta, beautiful product and totally viable. They could actually make it and completely failed on pricing power and profitability. The truth be told is Encarta took thousands of people making handcrafted content to put on a DVD that got shipped to you, and 6 months later when you got it, it was all out of date. The truth here is that Wikipedia came along and totally disrupted Encarta. It was free to use, you contributed the content. It wasn't as accurate, it wasn't as nice, but it was good enough. So when you do launch a product, don't be an Encarta. Ask and discover and test and learn how much a customer is really willing to pay. Have you removed all the friction from the process? And what happens if a competitor comes along and offers it for free? One of the classic things we see a lot these days is what happens if Google or Facebook copies your product? Does it kill you or can you survive against them? Okay, so now those are the problems that you're likely to face, the things to sort of watch out for. Let's map the path now. Let's look at this from a kind of, what do we have to do? Let's roll up the sleeves and look at things a little bit more step by step. Okay, methodologies. Lots to digest here. But, look, first things first, just do it. Get out of PowerPoint, get into whiteboarding, stickies, wireframes, sketches. You have to really make it come alive. Don't keep polishing your concept presentation. Go out and build it. So a classic process and methodology might look like 2 weeks of discovery, where you get people together and align around a big problem, and then go out and talk to customers and find out their pains and gains. Then step 3, go and actually prototype solutions to those pains and gains that your customer has. Test and learn with your customer. And once you've got that, go build an MVP, okay? Minimum viable product. Not the full thing, but it's good enough for like a beta test or a closed user group. It can live and breathe. It doesn't have to be distributed to everyone, but here you're really looking for product market fit. And lastly, then you produce the final product, and that's going to be ready to grow and scale to hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of customers. Now, through that journey, there's 3 steps. What I would probably call problem solution fit, product market fit, distribution conversion fit. And the expertise that are used in those, so when you're just trying to find out what the problem is, that's very much a user experience kind of thing. Whereas when you're getting into product market fit, that's much more product management. So you start to move away from just thinking about pains and gains. You're asking yourself, is this viable, right? And then lastly, when you're trying to distribute, grow that product and get lots of conversions, you're doing that to a mass audience, and you're often using advertising to do so. So it's much more of a marketing thing. What the challenge here is that, this is 3 very discrete practices with very different tools, different focuses, and it's truly remarkable how little this slide is understood by people who build, design, market products. It's very complex. It's an enormous amount of expertise that you need to have: user experience, product management, and marketing. You need all of this to build and launch something brand new in the world. And that's, to be honest, that's why so many people fail. Okay. Now, earlier we talked about the challenges. I actually want to grab each of these challenges as they will occur for you and kind of show you how you can go out and tackle them. So there's 4 big, nasty challenges on this journey through UX, through distribution, product management, you name it. Number 1 would definitely be inspiration. 2 would be how you validate if you've actually got an idea. And once you've got that idea, the 3rd one is how you get to product. So much can get lost in translation there. And lastly, how do you avoid a product that nobody wants? How do you avoid being the Segway where you thought you'd sell 60,000 and you sold 6? How do you go out into the world and build something that people just adore? So these are the 4 questions, 4 challenges. Basically, hardly anyone gets through all of these. So here's my suggestions on how you can get through them. Okay, number 1, if you want to get insights, go to the customer. Ask them what keeps them up at night. Find out what brings a smile to their face. And really find out what's missing in their lives. Now, once you start to get some insights there, then you can start thinking about, well, how might we create pain relievers and gain creators for people around this problem? Now you can use obviously the value proposition canvas here. It's a great tool. It's a subset of the lean canvas that I showed you earlier. But look, some simple ways to sort of get creative about product creation. Do opposite to how everyone else is doing it. That's really powerful. What happens if Airbnb was to do it? What happens if we can't include FAQ and instructions? And then just how do we just make an intuitive product? And what happens if how do we create a product that gets better the more people that use it? So this gets some sort of exponential factors going on, network effects. Now, an emergency list of tactics: do a survey, do an in-home deep customer survey, an interview, review your competition. One of my favorites, be a mystery shopper. This one's awesome. So I really encourage you to look at these kind of things, and you'll be able to actually unlock some inspiration. So let's assume you're inspired, you're all fired up, you've got the idea, but how do you know if it's any good? Well, this is all about moving into working with customers and testing and learning. So you can role play scenarios, sort cards, create user journeys, create prototypes. The key thing here is just listen and learn. Don't pitch customers, learn from them. So a great tool for learning from customers is you show them 10 cards that are all the different pains or challenges they face around your product or service, and you ask them to create an order. Maybe what's the most important, what causes them the most stress, which one do they spend the most time on, etc., etc. This can give you instant insight into their pains and gains, and a lot of inspiration can come here. But it's how you can also validate, are you doing the thing that really matters for them? Now we're getting into some prototyping here, and there's a ton of tools you can use. Here's a whole entire list, and you can download this presentation from mikeparsons.net. Just grab this whole deck and you can refer to it later. But the key thing is, it's a whole range of tools that can bring your product idea, your service idea to life. And I put them on a little bit of a spectrum here. So we start with pens and paper, then we kind of move to more higher fidelity, but still really quick to turn around. So more illustrations, scissors, cardboard, string, and that kind of stuff. And the reason why paper and these kind of things are so important is that they're the fastest turnaround time materials. If you're making digital prototypes, they take much longer to turn around, and it means the time between your learnings is greater, and that means that the level of your learning, the scale of your learning is less. So you want to move fast when you're prototyping. Obviously, if you're getting a lot of positive signals, you can start building digital prototypes with Sketch, InVision, Adobe XD, throw them on an iPad or a laptop, and you're good to go. Now, throughout that, you can also then apply these tools into different scenarios. You can do diagnostics, you can do journeys, or you can actually create experiences. I strongly suggest that you actually move through all three of these levels. Do some interviews, do some card sorting, create customer support journeys, recreate the transaction, and if you're really getting up there, like do an entire onboarding experience or a whole feature or maybe even a whole product. But you should definitely start on the left and move through to the right. This is just a simple example of what would that look like if you did it for a mortgage experience. You might start by interviewing people and saying, hey, what's the most stressful thing about getting a mortgage? I'll have hundreds and hundreds of things to share with you. You might, to create a journey, you might actually try doing the classic customer support experience with totally different scripts to see how you might actually approach things in different ways. And you'll be surprised at the results that you can get. And lastly, something I mentioned before is you could try creating an onboarding experience for a mortgage product. And you might say, let's use some onboarding metaphors, maybe a visual progress bar, or some sort of visual device that helps users track where they are in the experience. This is just an example of different types of scenarios that you can prototype with your customer. You can get pains and gains, and you can validate if you have a product market fit. Here's some great examples of some really fun prototyping. This is on the left here. This is working with a big US bank doing some biometric security and authentication. On the right-hand side, this is Jonathan from Levi's creating a whole new range for Levi's together. That was a really fun project. Over here is a really cool project. It was with a whole bunch of medical gurus. It was around pulmonary cancer, lung cancer, and totally rethinking that. And over here is on the right-hand side, we're prototyping like a modern MasterChef experience for a luxury kitchen appliance manufacturer. And you'll just notice how hands-on it is. There's no PowerPoint, and really at the core of it, what's there is direct experience. So if you're going to create an app that helps people do sport, then get people running around doing sport activities. The other thing that's really key to prototyping is listening. You got to listen to the customer. This is the genesis of so much innovation. And hustle and move real quick. Because if you do move really quick, you'll get so much learnings in a short time. You will actually make all the breakthroughs that you need. Okay, so we're inspired, we have a good idea, but we've got to get to great product. I want to stress here two things. Create a small team and go fast, and start with the important stuff. So it's essentially, take Skunkworks, that's a great example for the first one. Use lots of agile methodologies. But the big one I want to emphasize here is don't use the waterfall approach, which is very linear and sort of A to Z. I want you to focus on a very agile-based method. I want you to prioritize features by importance. So you always start with the killer app and leave all of the utilities, common and secondary practices till the end. Most dev teams, particularly in software, get caught out because they do the inverse. They've built the login, they've built the database, but they haven't actually built the core experience. And they don't have enough time, and they compromise the core product, and all the other stuff that's not nearly as important is finished. So prioritize with the primary feature first. So you've got the product, and you're close to launching, and the key thing that you need to do is ensure that your product launch and your product serves a need in a way that overcomes one of the greatest challenges, which is the endowment effect. And the endowment effect basically is this: customers value what they have and they don't like change. But on the other side, the companies who are creating all these breakthrough new products, they value what they have too, and they fall in love with their own creations and become blind to the fact that customers see more losses than gains when they are introduced to new products. We hate taking on new products because we just see switching costs. Classic example of this: if an Apple iPhone user is introduced to a new Samsung phone, they're instantly thinking about all the hassles of switching to Samsung. That's switching costs right there. So everybody's endowed with their own thing, and messes ensued. A lot of the product failures I talked about at the beginning of this talk come down to the fact that people were so carried away with their inventions, they didn't realize that the customer didn't want to switch to this product, or they didn't even see the value in it. So the question then becomes, well, how do you avoid a product that nobody wants? How do you actually come up with something that people love, talk about, and becomes a knockout success? Well, there's like sort of a formula behind this. And I've just put the smartphone market into this formula as an example, just to help you understand it. And basically here it is. When you create a new product, you want to reduce the amount of behavior change required for your customer. So that's why on the left-hand side here, you want to have a low amount of behavior change required. On the other side, on the bottom part of this axis, you actually want to increase a ton of user benefits. So on one hand, low change, low effort. On the other hand, high benefits, high value creation. Now, obviously, the iPhone is in the upper right. It's the home run here. It's easy to use, low amount of behavior change, and delivers a ton of value. What's interesting is when you then compare that in the other quadrants, how other products are missing some bits of this formula. Take Xiaomi, Chinese company, makes nice smartphones. They're Android based. They often have many features of the iPhone or Samsung phones, and they're very reasonably priced and they're nice. I call these quick fixes. They're not going to sustain huge amounts of market share long term, but they're quite affordable. And if people aren't really that excited about paying top dollar for an iPhone, then Xiaomi is a legitimate alternative. The BlackBerry is a great example where, particularly in their early days, they used to provide a lot of value, but because they missed touchscreen and the App Store features after the iPhone was released, actually it totally changed the landscape of what the de facto standard was for behavior change and effort. So what happened was the BlackBerries became more work to use because compared to the iPhone, they were cumbersome. And that's really at the heart of why they failed. The other interesting thing is if you look at the total fails, the Iridium satellite phone, the Amazon Fire, and Microsoft Kin, these products created enormous hassles for customers and offered little value. So they're in the fail box. So this is the model. This is the formula. Don't ask a lot of behavior change from your customers and deliver tons of value. But let's just go into that. And this is the last thing I have to give you. And this is really sort of, this is the killer slide. If you want to innovate, this really is the one. Obviously, if you break down behavior that products require, you want less time, less money, less effort. Those are obvious. But these next three are like what I call sort of the dark arts, if you will, of innovation. A new product should not require a lot of brain cycles. And the iPhone did a great job. It said, you don't even need a manual to start this thing. That's a great example of reducing the amount of thinking and brain cycles people need to do, particularly to onboard and use a product. Social deviance. Well, this was the Segway thing. Look, they deviated so much from social norms. People felt like idiots on the device. It was destined to fail. And lastly is routine. Customers love routine, and that's why retailers focus so much on location, 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 because they need to be in the routine patterns that customers already have. So every Starbucks will look to be near an airport, near a train station, near a shopping mall, near an office, because they don't want to be too far, because then it's just too much out of my routine. And this is critical if you want to reduce the amount of behavior change required for customers. Now, let's say you get all those things done. The home run begins when you start to drive up things. These are really kind of popular benefits right now. Simplicity and mobility and affordability, these are all big drivers of benefits. And you start to kind of go up the Maslow hierarchy of human needs here. If you can create wellness and freedom, customers are going to come back time after time. And particularly for a more millennial-based audience, if you can offer fulfillment and impact in the world, these benefits are priceless. And that'll set you on the path to innovation success, creating something truly remarkable. So guys, look, I know it must feel a little overwhelming, and it is hard. I'm not going to lie. Most innovation projects fail bad. Most innovation projects don't even get to market. It's that hard. It's just too many things to jump over, too many barriers. So you just need to have, there's a little bit of art and science blend, user experience, product management, marketing, and put them all together, and it will take enormous energy. It's a very tiring process, but if you do it, if you use some of the tools that I've given you, the rewards at the other end are amazing. When you launch a product into the world that people are raving about, it's one of the most amazing experiences you could have. So I want you to go out there and prototype and to learn from your customers, to build MVPs, and just to, discover the ways to get traction and conversion for your new product. So go out and innovate. Thank you.